Well, ACT leader David Seymour is behind the bill. He joins us in studio now. Morena.
Morena.
Before we even get to that, can we talk about the timing of the bill? Why was it changed?
Well, can we, before we even get to that, can we start with your introduction? Because it is not a divisive bill. It is some people's opinion that it's a divisive bill. Your job is to reflect the views of all New Zealanders, not to take sides. Second of all, as a matter of fact, it does not change the Treaty of Waitangi at all. It changes the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi, which was set down by Parliament in 1975. Now, if we can just start with a bit of fairness and a few facts, then I'm very happy to look at your other questions.
So there have been protests, across the country. There's a hikoi that's coming down to Wellington. Is that not a sign that there is division in what this bill is doing?
No, it's a sign that some people oppose it. Yesterday, there were counted 17 people outside Parliament, and I watched your news last night, which was zoomed in on one or two people to make it look as though it was bigger than it really was. And I think one of the things that people are a little tired of is, rather than asking, well, David, what's this about, putting all of this slant that actually makes it harder to have the discussion that New Zealanders deserve. Now, to get to your question, why was it changed? I've been asked that by media all week. I've answered it many times, but I'll do it again if you'd like me to.
Oh, I'd like you to, because you're here on Breakfast and our audience may not have heard it.
And the answer is very simply that it was never changed. Dates go up and down all the time. If you're getting something ready to go to Parliament, sometimes the work goes faster than you think, sometimes goes slower than you think. It happens in most workplaces in different ways up and down New Zealand. What was different this time is that the Waitangi Tribunal have demanded a blow-by-blow account of the development of the bill. They said, when will it be introduced? We said, well, here's a date it could happen. Turned out it was earlier. But to make that some sort of major difference and a change, I think is totally inaccurate. Now, what would be helpful is if we could talk about what's actually in the bill. What the bill says is that the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi, which Parliament said existed in 1975 but have never defined, those principles are that we have a government that has a right to govern and a Parliament that has a right to make laws, that the rights of hapu and iwi Māori when they signed the treaty will be protected, but that those rights, apart from treaty settlements, should be enjoyed by all New Zealanders, because we're all born in this country and it's the only country that most of us have, and that finally we all have the same rights and duties before the rule of law, just as the Treaty of Waitangi in the Māori version in its third article says, Ngā tikanga katoa rite tahi.
So, you talk about those settlements. Those settlements are about addressing historic grievances. The treaty is about an ongoing relationship with the Crown and with Māori as well. Does your bill propose to remove the formal concept of partnership?
Well, the formal partnership...
Beyond the settlements.
The formal concept of partnership is not in the treaty. It's a creation of the Waitangi Tribunal and the court. The court said in 1987 that the treaty formed a, quote, partnership between races. I believe that that is the wrong way for any country to proceed, because what it tells you is that your role in the society depends on your ancestry. And people who think that the treaty is a partnership need to explain, how is this world that you want supposed to work? Where in society, where in the world, in fact, has it been a success to treat people differently based on their ancestry? It's a terrible idea. It's failed all over the place. And all of the good movements in history have said, no, actually, each of us deserve equal respect and dignity for being human, not to be divided by our background.
But is there a difference between equal and fair treatment? You talk about equality for everybody, but what about fairness and equality?
Well, would you like to explain how you think that they're different?
Well, just in terms of, you've got the treaty and there were grievances. That we know that there have been grievances since that treaty was signed back in 1840. So when you look at the treaty principles that you are introducing, are they fair to that treaty, which was signed by both parties back in 1840? You talk about equality, but what about the fairness in all of this?
Well, let's just talk about two issues that you've raised. First of all, the treaty settlement. The ACT Party's voted for every single treaty settlement in 30 years. I support the treaty settlement process. I think it's a wonderful thing. In fact, I don't think many countries could have looked at the difficulties and the challenges that we've had as a country. Terrible things happened through the 1860s and beyond, no question. And we've gone back and we've methodically tried to understand what happened and put redress in place, not for all Māori, but for the specific hapu and iwi who were affected in each time and place. I'm very proud of that. I think it's a great achievement for New Zealand. That's why this bill protects treaty settlements. However, it also is important to recognise that what's fair is that if you are a child born into this country or a person who legally immigrates here, you should have exactly the same rights and duties, because you know what? There's lots of unfairness in history. People that have faced huge challenges, people that have come here as refugees very recently, people who survived the Holocaust, people who came here to escape grinding poverty in Ireland or Scotland or England like some of my ancestors did. We can all point to wonderful things and terrible things in history, but the question is what's fair is that each of us have the same basic rights before the law to overcome the challenges we face today, not based on what happened 200 years ago, but based on what we can do to make a difference in our own lives and flourish. That's the only way that you make the world a better place.
We had Te Pāti Māori co-leader, Debbie Ngārewa-Paika, on the program. She says that this bill isn't about equity or equal rights. Take a listen.
Tangata whenua are the last bastion. We are who you need to talk to and to make sure the correction of our moana, our whenua, our whānau is protected and looked after. You remove tangata whenua rights, then you have allowed full access to exploitation of all of that. Exploitation of our whenua, exploitation of our whānau, exploitation of our moana. And by doing this is exactly where ACT are going. This isn't about giving equality to anyone but those who are wanting to exploit the resources and the rights of us in Aotearoa.
What's your response to that?
Well, it's a really interesting clip for a whole bunch of reasons. First of all, she's making the claim that tangata whenua or Māori somehow are the only people who care, or at least care more than other people, about the natural environment and resources. That's not true. New Zealanders from all walks of life care deeply about our natural environment and about conserving what makes New Zealand such a great place, which is our connection to the land. But it is also true that not every Māori person is an environmentalist. I'm sure there's some Māori people who don't care much about the environment whatsoever, as there are some non-Māori people and there are some people who are not Māori but do care about the environment. And this is my point. What they are saying is that we are somehow bound by our ancestry to play a role in the society that we live in. What I'm saying is that each of us are a human being with the same basic rights and dignity. We all come in different shapes and sizes and attitudes and backgrounds, but we should not try and assume that all people fit into a group based on their race or their ancestry. That used to be called racism, discrimination, stereotyping, the things that I would have thought we'd all be against. Today, it's paraded as a legitimate view. I don't think it is it's legitimate to express it, but I don't think it's a legitimate view. Equality and universal human rights, that's what we're about. And that's what this bill is about.
National says it won't support this bill. The Prime Minister says it won't progress past next week. How does that align with your goal of reducing public spending? Because how much has this process cost so far?
Well, what it costs is that Parliament's going to be open anyway, so I guess in theory you could debate some other bill. That's the cost, is that you can't debate another bill while you're debating this one, although actually at any given time there's probably about 20 bills going through Parliament, so I guess this will be one of the 20. That's really the cost. If you want to try and add that up, you can. But
I'm asking you what the cost is.
So, well, I'm just saying that's, you can't really put any kind of figure on it. It's just some of Parliament's time will be used for this bill instead of another one, but Parliament's probably
doing it. But this is a bill that National says it won't support. There's no other party that's going to support it, and that it won't get past next week's first reading.
No, it will get past next week's first reading, and then it will go to, and this again, let's get some facts and some fairness here, some balance in the media. There's going to be a select committee inquiry for 6 months, and what that means is that New Zealanders are going to be able to submit, and for many people, this will be the first time that they've been able to have a say about our country's constitutional future, not told they're the wrong type of person, they're not an expert, they're racist, they can't have a say or whatever, you're not tangata whenua, you're just tangata tiriti, you're not allowed to have a say on this. It's going to democratise the treaty. And what's interesting is the people who like to say that this bill is going nowhere actually want to stop it before it goes anywhere, because they know that as soon as everyone has a say about our constitutional future on equal grounds, that is a revolution for the way we talk about the treaty. It's actually going to enhance the mana of the treaty, frankly.
The Prime Minister says he's not going to support it.
Well, no, I've heard him say that. Let's see where it gets to in 6 months' time.
Will you meet the hikoi when it arrives at Parliament on the 19th?
I think highly likely, yes.
Yep. David Seymour, leader of the ACT Party, joining us this morning. Tēnā koe.